In the delivery room of a hospital, a mother cradles her newborn baby boy. A moment of pure bliss passes through her skin and bones as the doctors tell her that he's completely healthy and the procedure was successful. She gives her son a quick look, then pans around the room while looking at her husband and every doctor as she says, "This boy is going to be one of the wisest men in the world. I can feel it." By the time the boy had turned 10, he had become one of the youngest math prodigies in the world. His skills rivaled that of college students, and so his teachers decided to have a conference with his parents to talk about the boy's future. "It's clear your son does not belong in elementary school," they said. "Your boy has got a gift. It's time you placed him in more rigorous courses that are akin to his skill level." As the teachers were discussing his potential college choices on their own, the mother turned to the father as she whispered in his ear, "I knew it. I knew he would be one of the wisest men in the world." By age 12, the boy was already in college taking classes like calculus, linear algebra, and complex analysis. He was an anomaly. Nobody could figure out why he was gifted with the capability to solve complex equations and create new ones. Naturally, because of this, many psychologists and famous mathematicians tried to study his mind and ways of solving these difficult algorithms and equations. When they asked him to explain how he went about solving a problem, the adults surrounding him held up their notebooks and pens, eagerly awaiting his response. "Well, it's sort of like a puzzle. I just visualize each piece of the equation like a specific piece and find the other piece that matches it. That's about the best I can explain it." The mathematicians and psychologists scratched their head. A superficial explanation that's been used thousands of times was the same sort of method this prodigy used? Perhaps when the boy grew older, they could come back to him and receive a more considerable explanation. The years went on and the boy continued to receive many scholastic awards. By age 15, he had finished college, and by 18, he was on his way to becoming one of the pioneers for the future of mathematics. Amidst all the celebration and praise, during a small family get-together, the boy's grandpa called him over to speak with him personally. "Congratulations, my boy. You should be proud of yourself," the grandpa said. "Let me ask you something. How confident are you in your math skills?" "Well, I'd say I'm more confident than most. I know what I'm doing," the boy said. The grandpa chuckled. "I thought so. Now tell me, have you exercised that same sort of tenacity for learning in fields outside of mathematics? Your mother tells me most of your life has been dedicated to this craft." Well, I guess not. Come to think of it, I never really learned most of what kids my age tend to know, like how to be sociable, play sports, or even ride a bike." "Now you're really starting to sound wise," the grandpa said. "Might I give you some advice? Take some time off this busy work with mathematics. Go out into the world and try to learn things you've never given yourself permission to tackle. Ask questions and seek answers. After you've done that for a while, we'll talk again about your perception of your knowledge." The boy was somewhat confused, but he agreed. He had assumed what his grandpa meant was that real knowledge comes from knowing a lot of different things, not just being really good at one thing. And so the young man started his journey outside of mathematics. He started out with the things he should have already known at his age, but neglected. He decided to pick up soccer and practice kicking the ball around by himself, and quickly came to realize that this was not going to come as easy to him as arranging a bunch of numbers in his head did. He asked his dad, who had played soccer as a kid, he went to places online like YouTube, and he quickly came to realize that the more he tried to figure out how to play soccer effectively, the more he didn't know how to play soccer effectively. He then decided to try riding a bike, and again was met with strong difficulties. He tried the same methods of asking his parents, who helped guide him and make some progress, as well as search for answers online, and he quickly came to realize that the more he tried to figure out how to ride a bike, the more he didn't know about riding bikes. This sort of mentality shift from being so gifted and so overconfident in his skills opened up a new part of him that he couldn't quite put into words. With the generous amounts of money he received from the dozens of grants he got from his scholastic works, he decided to start traveling the world, searching for more wisdom on this new part of himself he had yet to explore. As he went from country to country, experiencing culture after culture, new foods, species of plants, animals, and sea life, his confidence in his knowledge started to dive lower and lower. But to him, it was incredibly liberating. To know how much he didn't know, to have a stockpile of untapped existential thoughts, scientific discoveries, and blissful ignorances to explore was a complete acceptance of the insanity and impossible to define experience that was life. After living this way for several years, he met with his grandpa once again. "So, how confident are you in your ability to know things now?" the grandpa said. "Grandpa, I think I finally understand now. The The one thing that I know for certain is that I don't know anything. And the more I get to know something, the less I actually know about it. Well done, said the grandpa. Maybe now you are truly one of the wisest men in the world. This story leaves many questions unanswered. One can even say that you don't know what you should know about this story. And that's kind of the point. Let's tackle the first problem with trying to know something. Words. They say that in order to really know something, you have to excel at being able to explain and teach it. What do you use to explain and teach it? Words. But the problem is, words aren't reality. Reality is just this. Just like how the boy in the story could not describe how he was able to effortlessly excel in math, there will always be a barrier between the words we try to use to explain something and the actual thing itself. So if we define knowledge by our ability to explain that thing, then that means we define knowledge as knowing a lot of words related to that thing. Sounds pretty stupid when you put it that way, doesn't it? A better way of quantifying how knowledgeable someone is about something probably wouldn't use words at all. Let's disregard that brain melter and move on to the next problem. But before we do that, let's talk about those finely cut pieces of wood with scribbled ink on them that cause you to vividly hallucinate when you read said ink. Books. Despite what I've said, books can be useful to being more effective at certain things. But the problem with most books, at least non-fiction books, is they contain a lot of fluff. That is why, when it comes to non-fiction books, I'm much more likely to read book summaries using the sponsor of today's video, Shortform. If you don't know what Shortform is, it is a platform that is producing the highest quality book summaries to non-fiction books. Each book summary has comprehensive coverage of all the book's key ideas, clearly and simply explained, and each book summary also comes with exercises that you can do to apply what you've learned directly after you have learned it. And like we've talked about so far, knowledge without application is completely useless. Those exercises are really what makes Shortform stand out from all of the rest of these book summary platforms. A book summary that I'm really enjoying that kind of influenced the writing of this video is Ways of Seeing by John Berger. In that book summary, he talks about defining an image and how an image is a replication of the thing that exists. And once a sight becomes an image, it's no longer a record of what that thing actually was in that moment, which is just one of the many thinking experiments I got from this book. 3 categories I think you guys would be really interested in are psychology, philosophy, and self-improvement. If you want to get 5 days of unlimited access for free, plus an additional 20% off an annual subscription, then you can use my unique link, which is shortform.com/Cole, or you can click the link in the description. And that is going to give you access to thousands of book guides for the price of 1 book a month. Go check it out. Now let's move on to the next problem of knowing something, objective truth. Let me ask you something. Since humans have had the capability to conceptualize their surroundings and use their frontal lobes to think critically, do you think we've moved closer and closer to achieving the truth behind reality? And how do we measure if something is objectively true? Now, when I say objective truth, what I mean is the concept of truth independent from individual subjectivity, that is, bias caused by one's perception, emotions, or imagination. Okay, cool. So following that, then we need a bunch of people to get together and agree on a certain statement in order for it to be considered objectively true. For example, let's say we're all looking at a red car, and every person that sees the car out of a group of people agrees that it is red. So objectively speaking, that car must be red, right? But how do we know what the color red looks like to other people? My red could look completely different from your red. Oh, what? We can never actually know and can only explain it based on its place on the visible spectrum of light, and red to some people is described differently by other people, so we're kind of just Sorry, kinda pissed and now my brain hurts again. Almost seems like we can't prove anything exists at all because there's always gonna be some sort of dissociation between my reality and your reality. Now, this is the part where you're supposed to disagree with me and say, Cole, that isn't entirely true. There are exceptions to this, like the fact that processed junk food is objectively bad for all of us. Yes, of course that's true, and I suppose that's not the type of knowledge I'm trying to get you to think deeply about. The knowledge I'm trying to get you to go really far into is the answer to every question that starts with why. Why was I born? Why do I feel like shit when I eat junk food? Why do I like hip-hop music and despise country music? Okay, maybe the answer to that last one is pretty obvious. There's this strange phenomenon in our reality that when we try to search and find an answer to something, we realize that there were 20 more things that we didn't know about that something. Visually, it looks something like this, where initially your bubble of knowledge starts small. And because this bubble is small, the things you know that you don't know are small. But the more your knowledge expands through experience, the more the small bubbles that represent the things you know don't know around your bubble of knowledge increase. And so I could go on and on with these different thought experiments, but I suppose you want me to get to the point that makes your brain stop yelling at you. We have all experienced in our lifetime the stress of not knowing. Not knowing what the future may hold, not knowing why people treat you a certain way, not knowing an answer on a test, and feeling like we don't know enough at our jobs to the point where we feel like an imposter. It still happens to me till this day. But what I find immense solace in is the fact that I don't and cannot ever really know anything and will probably never know anything. And this doesn't mean that I'm not confident in the way that I carry myself and what I say and what I do. It's just not the way you think. The people with an outrageous amount of confidence in the things they say and do are simply just doing that because they've experienced enough of it to be above average in that thing, and they know what to expect because of it, or because it makes others easier to manipulate. It's what our usual, confused, unknowing selves are attracted to. For someone to hold what they say as absolute truth, and say it with such conviction in a world where we can never fully figure things out and things don't make sense, alleviates our stresses from trying to figure this game of life out. And then a lot of people start to put blind faith and trust into these people. But the wisest people that I know are the ones that realize that they don't know. The ones that have tried to thoroughly answer these impossible questions and made their brains hurt so much that they eventually got to the point where they just radically accepted the strangeness and unpredictability of the reality we find ourselves in and chose to go with it instead of against it through means of explanation. Those, I find, are usually the people that are the most free and encapsulate the true meaning of confidence, and I try to do the same as well. You see, confidence is not knowing with absolute certainty and having absolute certainty in yourself and what you're doing. It's having absolute certainty in knowing that you don't know and using that to empower every step you take, everything you say, and every experience that you play with, so you never end up overanalyzing the thing that you're doing or trying to explain. And you become exceptional at things not by trying to explain it as much as you possibly can in your mind and stressing over it over and over, but by doing the actual thing over and over. I find it's much more fun that way anyways. Now, it's not always going to be beneficial to not use words when trying to explain ideas or figure things out, or to not seek out knowledge through words, especially when you're trying to educate someone or yourself. Hell, I'm doing everything that I said you shouldn't do right now, because words can still be an extremely powerful tool for helping others. But every once in a while, just take a step back, look up at the sky, and realize that nobody, not you, not the yogi selling drugs at the park that he claims makes you enlightened, and especially not the young math prodigy, know anything. With this mindset, the unconfident, confused young person that you probably are starts to realize that existence need not be taken so seriously because it was never something that anyone was meant to fully figure out. And so they become more confident with their place in the world. The person who struggles to feel confident enough for their job realizes that everyone else feels equally as incompetent no matter their skill level, because the people who are higher up in the job know more and therefore know that they don't know more, and so they stop their worrying. And the person who struggles to wrap their head around their existence and their meaning for being here starts to realize there was never any explanation they were supposed to find in the end, because the more you try to explain existence, the farther away you go from existence itself and reduce the joy and appreciation for existence that comes simply by doing and being. And they take a nice deep breath and they start to chill out more. But don't take my word for it, because I don't know anything. Thank you very much to all my patrons on Patreon who are supporting my channel. If you don't know what this is, it's a platform separate from YouTube where I'm putting out exclusive content you can't find anywhere else. That's in the description. If you like videos like this that are more philosophical and existential, try checking out this video and watching it. Just click on it and you'll probably enjoy it as much as you did this video. Maybe you did enjoy it. I don't know. I have no knowledge. All right, I'm going.